live. Welcome to the program on this Sunday morning. I'm live in my makeshift studio. I found an article titled Analysis, quote, Netanyahu knew the Israeli hostages were on borrowed time. Their blood is on his hands, quote, close quote. And the article is written from Haaretz News. So everything that I'm going to read concerning this analysis was written Gildy White, September 1st at 2:29 p.m. So this is probably Israel time. Quote, a senior member of Netanyahu's government went on to say that, quote, everyone knew he's a narcissist and a coward, but his lack of humility went into full, ugly display in recent months, close quote. He knew the hostages are living on borrowed time, that the sand in their hourglass was running out. A senior official in Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government said over the weekend. He knew there were orders to kill them if there be rescued attempts. He understood the significance of his orders and acted in cold blood and cruelly. They all knew he is corrupted, a narcissist, a coward, the official continued. But his lack of humanity was fully revealed in all its ugliness in recent months, he added. The blood is on his hands without absolving Hamas of any responsibility. Quote, close quote. The Prime Minister is indeed the main culprit for the horror that transpired in the tunnel under Rafah, which ended on Sunday with 6 fresh graves. But he's not the only guilty party. Direct responsibility for the tragedy also falls on Likud cabinet members, the pathetic gang that made the Philadelphia corridor a holy place. After months of saying, quote, amen to every step the Prime Minister took, close quote. These people are servants who could change, or these people are servants who would change their opinion in a second and vote for a deal if they realized that Netanyahu supported it, said an individual who was present at the meetings. Foreign Minister Israeli Katz, Transportation Minister Mari Reeve, former Foreign Minister Eli Cohen, and their partners are spineless lackeys on a level of the public doesn't comprehend. They're only interested in their political careers. The same can be said about allegedly sane cabinet members and lawmakers who could have brought down the government of blood, but have instead remained glued to their chairs. Even the moderate and rational Ari Deri will also struggle to clean the blood from his hands. The Shah's chairman could have saved the hostages and the country long ago if he were truly a leader. Anyone capable of taking action to release them as early as possible must do so as quickly as possible. His late spiritual leader, Rabbi Ovadia Youssef, once said. He said that the government especially had a duty to try with great vigor and the more forcefully to save and release our captive brethren held by the enemy. Indeed, Shah's announced that it would support any deal that would lead to the hostages' release. However, Deri didn't go out of his way to see a deal reached. He could have been a counterweight to the political pyromaniacs. Some of these words are hard to pronounce here. Ithmar, Ben Javar, and Bezeli, Sumtrich, threatening to topple the government if no deal would be signed. Instead, he spent recent months promoting other deals closer to his heart, like the rabbi's law, providing jobs for his cronies. Don't count on them, a senior coalition member said recently. His image as a responsible politician is an act. People deceive themselves into believing that he's the solution. But he'll leave the government after Netanyahu. Another person misusing his position is that Israel's president, Isaac Herzog, should have shouted from every single stage when everyone knew about the methodological and cynical abandonment of the hostages. Instead, he preferred to lose himself in his beloved meditating. One time, he got involved in the song repeating Israel at the, I'll spell this one, Eurovision Song Contest. Another time, he meditated between Rave and the bereaved families regarding the ceremony to make the first anniversary of the October 7 massacre. Yet another time, he meditated between Justice Minister Yavi Lin and Uzi Vogelman, the interim president of the Supreme Court, on Sunday. He belatedly apologized. It's not enough. The president should turn in the keys. Boy, they are not mincing words in this analysis. The opposition isn't free of responsibility either. It's enough to imagine how easily and quickly Netanyahu, had he been the opposition leader, would have torn into a government responsible for the worst disaster since the country's founding, in order to understand the enormity of the failure of Agar, Lapid, Benny Gantz, and Avigdor Lieberman, those who should have been working to peel off deserts from the coalition, those who should have been working to peel off deserters from the coalition, and thus dissolve the government, instead chose to bicker with each other, joining them in the cowardly silence of the pretender to the crowd. Naftali Bennett, for the past year, those who claimed they should replace the Netanyahu government have been unable to stir up the streets, get people out of their homes, and disrupt life in Israel until the government falls. Not a single one of these deserves to lead Israel after the war in Gaza. These are the faces of the slain. For all intents and purposes, Netanyahu is alone on the playing field. His self-confidence grows as the danger of losing his title lowers. It was always clear he'd do everything to survive politically at any price, a political source said. But what we've seen in recent weeks, especially in the cabinet meeting about the Philadelphia route, shows he's no longer afraid of pushback. The man, worried of making decisions suddenly, pounded the table, going against the entire defense establishment, and after the defense minister explicitly warned him that he was endangering the hostages' lives, he insisted that the army remain in Philadelphia during the 6 weeks of a ceasefire and took care to release the decision so that Hamas would know he's aimed at one goal: torpedoing the deal. He simply abandoned the hostages without blinking. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, the only senior cabinet minister who dared to stand up to Netanyahu during the meeting, said the prime minister was in a coma immediately after the massacre. After that, to Gallant, he mostly worked diametrically opposed to Israeli interest. If anyone had doubts until now, the murder of the hostages should leave no doubt. The disaster must be a turning point in the Cite effort to send home the dangerous and radical gang that has seized control of Israel. If the streets remain empty and Israelis continue to wallow in their despair, the few hostages still alive will return here in body bags while the government drives the country toward annihilation. Quote, close quote. So the following was an analysis by Haaretz News. It was written by, give credit to Gildy Whites, 1st of September, 2:29 p.m. Never surrender, never quit.